On this episode of That Kingsville Podcast, former trustee of the Greater Essex County District School Board, Nancy Armstrong, joins us again to talk about some of the reasons why she resigned and other happenings that she'll discuss with us, I'm sure, in great detail. Steve and I also recap the opening ceremonies for the Fantasy of Lights and Town of Kingsville Santa Claus Parade, which we covered on, look at it on our YouTube page. And also Town of Kingsville released draft budget. We'll tease that a little bit, and we'll have a whole nother episode coming up soon. All that and more on this episode of That Kingsville Podcast. That Kingsville Podcast proudly brought to you by Kingsville Brewery. And ChatGPT doing a great job. Write the copy. Let's give it another shot. It's that time of year again, when the days get shorter, the sweaters get thicker, and you start wondering if raking leaves is actually a never-ending punishment for past mistakes. And after a long day of pretending to be productive outside, you deserve something good, something cold, something crafted with a whole lot more care than you put into stacking firewood or writing this copy. That's where Kingsville Brewery comes in. Whether you're into a smooth, easy-drinking Light A lager, the bold, flavorful IPA, or the crisp perfection of their Hefeweizen, Kingsville beers are built for the season, and the I earned this season. Perfect for winding down after yard work, warming up around a bonfire, or surviving that one neighbor who insists November is still grill season. Well, that's me. It's still grill season. I'm trudging through snow. Come on, ChatGPT, you should know this. Crafted right here in Ontario, each Kingsville beer is brewed small batch, high quality, and ready to make your chilly evenings a whole lot cozier. So as the temperature drops, stock up on something that lifts your spirits. Visit kingsvillebrewery.com to explore their full lineup and find new seasonal favorite. Kingsville Brewery, because cold weather calls for cold beer. It's not bad. That was better than last
one. That was good. It actually, and some Kingsville beer powered me through my yard work last week.
Actually, it did too.
Yeah.
I had a stout because it's stout season. Nice and cold.
Yeah.
Warms the cockles.
Forgot it's a little stronger too.
It is a little stronger. Watch out.
Yeah.
It'll get you.
Got even more done.
Or less, depending on how many you were into. Thank you, Kingsville Brewery, for supporting That Kingsville Podcast.
Yeah.
Welcome to That Kingsville Podcast. It's Dave and Steve. This episode, Kevin's away. He'll be back next episode. And as we teased in the preamble, next episode will be 2026 Town of Kingsville budget discussion. They released draft budget. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in this episode as well, too. But Steve, over the weekend, it was the Santa Claus Parade.
It was.
Yeah, it was unseasonably warm.
Yeah. Didn't have that sort of festive feel weather-wise, but I thought the parade certainly brought the energy.
Well, yeah.
And regardless of whether you're sitting there in your Hawaiian shirt and shorts or, trying to make it cooler and wearing a toque, it was good. I enjoyed the parade. It was very well done.
Yeah, really well attended. And, over the years that we've been up doing our coverage, when we were the hosts for the town or our own independent That Kingsville Podcast coverage, check out the YouTube channel. Gary does a great job. We've never had a parade that was this unseasonably warm. So that aside, we can't control the weather, but the crowds were great. Tons of people out, lots of smiling faces. Kids were having a great time.
Yeah.
It's the official kickoff to the Christmas season. And it's nice to see that we have that kind of a community out showing of support. So a lot of the businesses and local area groups, great floats, great participation, smiling faces. Good to see everybody. I always like the bands, right? So the Kingsville Essex Associated Band kind of started that whole parade thing. They started a song where I was standing for the coverage in the four corners. And
well, it's funny because I joked with my kids that anytime they go by me, wherever I am, and it always seemed whenever I was covering it,
yeah,
they weren't actually playing. like the drummers were, and they had the rhythm going, but it was very rarely I actually, you hear them coming,
yeah,
and they're playing, and it's great, and then they see me and they stop. And then once they realize they've passed Steve, they start playing again. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, they knew you wrote for the newspaper. It's like, we don't need audio for that guy. He's just all print.
However, that's a long-standing band that always turns up and turns out and does a really good job. And then the Optimist Youth Band from Windsor too. also entertaining. And yeah, it was well lit.
Very much so. I think that, all the lights and decorations and
like some of the work that went into those floats, the detail, the number of lights, the personnel, if you will. I don't know. It was kind of a nice sight, a sight for sore eyes, if you will. I thought it was great. I mean, Migration Festival Parade, I attended that one for the first time in a few years, and it was good. And I stood in the same spot for both. And the difference in the crowds, as expected. I mean, a Saturday morning versus the Saturday evening Santa Parade. But yeah, even you could see that the crowds just in front of Zares and all the way to the old high school. And then, looking into town, that from my vantage point was fantastic. It was just shoulder to shoulder, if you will. Yeah. And I know as it got closer to where you were, you said it was 3 or 4 deep.
Oh yeah, Gary and I were right at the Four Corners. Gary was on the northwest side of the road for the vantage point of the video, and I kind of roamed around a little bit, but from Pearl up, like packed, the sidewalks were packed, and all the way down Division south to the park, there was crowds everywhere. And I looked up Main Street towards the high school where you were, and I was surprised because, you forget how important it is to people, and that, everybody brings their kids and comes out for that experience. And then you see it like, oh yeah, this is a big deal. It's a good thing for the community.
Yeah. And what's nice with this one too is I know of people who kind of do the circuit, if you will. Ours historically is sort of the first one. It does kick off the fancy lights. And I believe Amherstburg's is this coming weekend. Leamington's is the weekend after. I believe Essex is December the 13th. So, almost every weekend you can go and check out a parade locally, which is great. But it is nice to kind of say that, we kind of kick things off. And the Fantasy Lights is back for, I lose track, 30-something years.
Oh, yeah, at least. Oh, it was there when we were in high school, right?
Yeah. So I think we had the same conversation last year as to what number it was. But
sorry, Doug.
We're terrible for this.
Sorry, Doug Dewey. We should know that you started it.
But there's something that has also sort of stood the test of time. I mean, other communities have done different things with lights and modernized, if you will. But I think what's unique to ours is the fact that it's student generated. The person power that went in from high school students over the years is what makes it unique. And I sat on the committee for a few years. And they're always coming up with different little events, different ways to tweak it, which is nice, as it should be. But the fact of the matter is that the mainstay, those fantastic displays and being able to walk around Lakeside Park is really what makes it great.
Yeah, how many years ago it was voted one of the best events in the province, right? So I'm glad that we're still supporting that. I'm glad that we're still driving tourism into town for things like that. And it just opens up everyone's eyes to, how thriving Kingsville is and how proud we should all be of what it is that we've got. So, but yeah, check out the video. It's posted on our YouTube channel, which you should be subscribed to so that I can quit my job and just become a internet influencer. We're at 300 and some odd, subscribers. So we're close. Yeah, it'll happen, right, Gary? Yeah, right. We add revenue on that, which we don't collect at all, right? So, but yeah, if you want to watch and listen to my stupid commentary while I'm standing there watching the floats go by, I try to read everyone's floats and announce who it is as they're going by, but understand as well, I'm blind and it's dark, and not everybody identified their floats with signage that was, available for me to read while they were passing by. So I did my best. In years past, we were, had a roster, so it was a little easier to be able to give a preamble. But that aside, yeah, we've got plenty of coverage, and you can see all the fun and festivity as it makes its way through that part of the parade route. So thanks again, Gary, for donating your time and services in order to provide that for everyone. So yeah. Nancy Armstrong, third Greater Essex County District School Board trustee to resign. So we had Ron St. Clair resign.
Ron LeClaire.
Sorry, Ron LeClaire.
A couple of months ago, I believe.
Okay, a couple of months ago. And then
Sarah Sipcar last year.
Yeah.
And her position was filled.
Correct.
And now there was a meeting last night. and a decision has been made on how they will fill the other 2 vacancies.
Yeah, well, let's give Nancy a call and we'll discuss it at length. Joining us on That Kingsville Podcast, as I already introduced, former school board trustee of the Greater Essex County District School Board, Nancy Armstrong, joins us on That Kingsville Podcast. Good evening, Nancy.
Good evening.
Well, you're back on the show again. Last time we had a pretty lengthy discussion, and then some things happened, and there was some disciplinary action.
Apparently, it got some attention.
Got some attention. So hey, I understand that you're passionate, but I want to just take a quick step back. So, Nancy, you were a teacher in your former career. So, can you explain a little bit about your career and who you were and why you decided to run to be a trustee for the school board?
Well, my history is I worked for Heinz until 92, and they downsized 400 of us then, and I lost my position then. So I went to Teachers College after that, which was the best thing I could have done because I absolutely loved being a teacher. So I taught for the board for 25 years and retired in 2019. And anything that I'm saying tonight has nothing to do with my teaching experience. I had a great experience being a teacher. What I'm talking about tonight is my role as a trustee. Why I decided to run. First of all, I never expected to get in, but there are a number of teachers who think, wow, when I retire from teaching, I can continue to serve our students by becoming a trustee. And so that was my thought.
So, your first term as a trustee was just this past term. So, or this current term, I should say.
Yes.
So, as we discussed when you were on the former episode of the show, things were going well until some breakdowns in the functionality of the committee and the school naming of the school in Kingsville being pretty much the main focal point that we focused on as a town, and that really brought you to want to speak out about your interactions and things that had transpired through that process. So when you came on the show, we had a lot of discussion about things that you were concerned with. When you went back to the committee, there was some disciplinary action. What was imposed on you being a trustee?
It was decided last June. The report was combined with Trustee Cook's report because she spoke out as well. So it took a long time for it to come about. So it was last June 10th, I think.
Yep.
We saw the report. And so June 30th, my sanctions were decided. And it was an interesting experience because I was not allowed to say anything, but I sat there. I didn't have to attend. I could have declined, but I sat there and listened to them trying to decide what to sanction me with. At first, it was for the rest of my term, which I guess I've sanctioned myself because I'm no longer going to be part. But I think if I remember correctly, you can't do anything more than 3 months or whatever. So as it turned out, it was just I couldn't attend the private session meeting in November. I couldn't attend in the summer because the sanctions came right away. But so just in November, I was not going to be allowed to attend the one last night, and then I'd be fine. So it's a system that has been revised now because the integrity commissioner is going to be responsible for investigating and deciding on action. It's no longer the trustees. So I think that's probably a positive step. But things should be running smoothly so that there's no need. I just couldn't not speak out because maybe all trustees should be former teachers, because if you're a teacher, you know how to put students first and you don't waver because that's what you're doing every day. So I think I lost track of my thinking there. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
So you came to a decision to resign, and I'm sure this was not an easy decision. And I'm sure you have a multitude of reasons. What did it look like for you the day that you said, I've come to a decision. I can't endure my tenure as a trustee?
Well, it's interesting. In the summer, somebody asked me why I wasn't at the meetings. Well, it was sanctioned and I couldn't be there. And so she said, "Did you resign?" And I said, "No, I'm gonna finish my term. I'm not a quitter. I'll finish my term." So that's what I thought going into this fall. But I have been wishing I had the guts to resign, or the reason to resign, whatever. But I'm not a quitter, so I was going to stick it out. But when I was thinking about everything that was happening and this restorative justice, I thought they're going to waste a lot of money on this, because number one, you have to volunteer to go into restorative justice, and you have to be open-minded. And after I read that and realized that the name of the school had been bounced around in December of 2023 in the committee and rejected, when I realized that, and it took me a long time to realize that, I was reading some stuff and I thought, wait a second, is that what really happened? When I realized that, I thought, I'm not going to be able to participate with an open mind, because I now am extremely angry that this name was rejected by the committee. And then all of a sudden, that's the one. Because why bother having a committee? Why not just, have somebody name it? So that still wasn't the last straw, though. It wasn't, because I thought, okay, maybe in this restorative justice, I'll listen. Maybe I can get through to someone with this facilitator there to talk about the harm that it has done the community. Because anywhere I go now, if I meet someone who recognizes me, they talk about it. Like, this is a year and a half later. Anyway, the final straw was the really nice letter that Kinsey and Emerson wrote, posted on Facebook in June, was very complimentary to Trustees Cook, Chin, and me. And I didn't know if the board would have seen it, because if you're not on Facebook, you wouldn't have seen it. And so I sent it to the board. Yes, it was written in June and I sent it in October, but I sent it at our first meeting in October, or around that time. And so it was still timely as far as I was concerned, because I wasn't going to send it out in the summer. People are on vacation. I wanted to wait until we started again. Anyway, it didn't get any good response at all. It was quite a dismissal of the whole thing. And I thought, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I have to resign, because I cannot, number one, I'm not going to be open-minded for the restorative justice because of how the students were treated. And secondly, I didn't think the other side was going to be open-minded either. So that's why I said it was going to be nothing more than a performance in my resignation letter. I just thought it was a waste of money. It wasn't going to have any positive effect on anybody. So that's why.
Did you feel that you were, as a trustee, as a council member, you are elected to represent the people, and that was your goal, that was your mandate, and to me, that was your purpose and what you were trying to accomplish. Did you feel that you were not being allowed to basically fulfill that role?
Yes, you very much so, because I was constantly silenced, I guess, for lack of a better word. The things that I wanted to bring forward were never allowed. So I wrote emails. I wrote a lot of emails and didn't ever get any answers, but at least I put it on paper. But it just didn't do any good, obviously, because nothing changed.
So you mentioned yourself, Trustee Cook, Trustee Chin. Was this sort of a block mentality where it was sort of youth, you hear Detroit versus everybody, but the trio versus everybody, so to speak? Did you feel that maybe there was an opportunity to sway, or you had other or fellow board members that at least would hear you out, or was this sort of like you were basically being shut out?
There were a couple of board members who I did have very good conversations with, but they voted in favor of the name anyway. So I don't know what went on behind the scenes there, because I really thought, especially the one conversation I had, I really was surprised when that trustee voted in favor of the name. So for 3 against 7, it's after April 2nd, and I really took exception to that meeting, and so did Trustee Cook, because of the interview that she gave after. Because what had happened, it was totally obvious to everyone that the meeting structure, where they were going to get a 2/3 vote because they had 7 out of 10 trustees who would vote to shut down debate and ram the name through. It was a 10-minute long interview, and I thought, that's not teamwork, because I was blindsided. I didn't know this was going to happen. I had prepared questions that I wanted to ask and all of that, and that was a waste. So that was not teamwork. That was putting a wall up. That was excluding 3 elected officials from a major decision. So I never really felt it went away. I don't know if other people thought that, but
in your time on the board, had you seen this before, or been asked to be part of maybe anything like this on any other decisions, whether it was the naming of a school or whether it was, spending money at a certain site or whatever like that? Had you seen anything like this that kind of hinted to you that, hey, this is what happened, or this could happen in your opinion?
No, this was it. It was an unusual circumstance, and it was very passionate one, like sometimes angry. Some, when I spoke at the podcast a year ago, I said I didn't understand it. I am no closer to understanding it now than I was a year ago.
And again, like any questions we ask, you don't have to answer. We're not trying to get you in trouble,
we're
or
not
whatever, even though you're not, you're no longer a trustee and cannot be sanctioned by the board. I mean, if you were to hazard a guess, if there was conjecture, if you were to kind of say, you know what, this is why this happened, do you have an idea? Do you think there's anyone behind it, or do you think it was just simply an easy way to get the deal done, regardless of the consequences?
Well, there was a time constraint in that they wanted to get going on everything else, the mascot and the colors and the painting and all of that. And for some reason, if I'm remembering correctly, if I'm remembering correctly, the meetings were taking longer, or they weren't able to be scheduled in time or whatever, because the timeline was already tight. And so they really wanted to get a name done. That's why I think it was Linda Chin, Trustee Chin, had asked to put it back to committee, the Erie Migration Academy back to committee, and the response was, no, we don't have time. And I do believe there was a time crunch. But then 6 weeks later, the name was changed again. So I'm going to repeat what someone told me because I did not know this. So it was someone who has been in meetings before. I don't know how long ago, but so again, I'm not trying to get myself in trouble here. I'm repeating a gossip.
This is hearsay. We understand that. Yep.
Okay, so you want the gossip? The gossip would be that trustees took turns naming schools, and so it was the Kingsville school's turn to have their name named, sort of thing. So I would think that meant working with the committee, because Trustee Buckler, the same night, had a name for their school, and it was fine. It was, I believe, from the committee, etc. So that's what the gossip was, and I don't know if it is true. So I think I've answered your question, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I mean, something like this, the rumors are going to fly. There's always going to be people stirring the pot, if you will. obviously we want to stick to the facts if we can. And I'm not saying that's factual or not factual. Looking at the sort of the next step for you, I mean, has there been any, I know it's only been a short time, any sort of second thoughts or regret, or, this is, you're steadfast, you're standing by this decision, you're happy with it because of everything that's gone on?
This is the best decision I could have made because first of all, everyone I have ever talked to has supported my position. And since I've resigned, I've been talking to a lot more people who are still supporting my position. Most of them have said, wow, I didn't expect you to last that long. So, because they could see how I was being silenced in meetings. But I never talked about it to people. They brought it up to me. So no, 100%, I am extremely happy that I resigned. And I will be doing a number of interviews, hopefully to draw attention to the fact that kids were not put at the center of this decision. I wrote an email, I think I sent it to Dave, but the 5 reasons why I say they were not at the center, and I'm going to repeat them. They didn't want Erie. They didn't want migration. They didn't want Erie migration because that had been tossed out in the December 2023 meeting, that Erie Migration Academy was on the list and it was tossed out as other names starting with Erie. They also didn't want a 4-word name. The focus group information, I think it was in January, came back with 4 words were too many, 2 words were too few. So 3 would have been just right. And they also wanted a good acronym. So there were 5 things the students wanted, and they didn't get any of them. So to me, that is absolutely not putting students at the front or the center of a decision. But that's what trustees are supposed to do.
Well, and I sat on the naming committee, and I do recall that both names that the committee put forward included the word Kingsville. And there was a lot of debate about that because, again, we draw from beyond just the community of Kingsville, especially with the French immersion program. There's students coming in from Essex and Leamington and Harrow, which technically is part of Essex, but Harrow is still, a standalone community, if you will. And, there was some debate as to whether Kingsville should be in there because of that. Yet, I think the majority of the people realized and felt that Kingsville needed to be in there because of the identity of the town. You have Essex, Bell River, Leamington, Tecumseh. All these communities have a public board.ca high school in them and have the name of that school. And I recognize that, Amherstburg doesn't. And I do understand the significance of the name North Star in that community. But even outside of the community, Tilbury, Blenheim, when you go places as an athlete, as an academic or a musician, and where are you from, what school, and you name the school, and nobody knows where it is. And it's hard for students to identify with that. And I've been to a couple of sporting events my kids have been at. And it got to the point, I was at a tennis event where the conveners started just saying Kingsville. Mm-hmm. I coached a soccer game and the ref's like, Kingsville this way, and whoever we're playing that way. Like, it's just easier and it identifies. And nobody I have really heard, other than, people who technically are supposed to use the name, call it by its name. It was not a popular choice, as we know. And to this day, it is still very seldomly referred to by its school name.
So, Nancy, in your opinion, why do you think the board named the school the Erie Migration District School?
I honestly, I don't know. That's why I said in a year, I still have not come any closer to understanding this decision. I really don't. And, that's because any time I asked a question, I didn't get any answers. So a year and a half later, a trustee is still scratching her head going, I don't get it, because I really, really do not. So
you've identified that there was some information that was withheld, or you've noted that through this whole process, when it was brought back to the committee in order for the series of events that led towards the naming. There was some omissions. There was some events that prevented some output of objection, of reevaluation, as we've talked. Do you think that there was an agenda as to why it got named Erie Migration District School?
No, I honestly, I have no idea. And I'm not trying to be evasive. I'd tell you if I had, but I'm still thinking, what was so fantastic about that name that all of this was worth it? Because a name is a name. And I don't want to belittle the fact that Kingsville should be in the name. That's not what I mean. If there were 600 submissions, why couldn't one of those 600 have been presented as, because the fact that Erie Migration Academy had already been discussed, evaluated, and rejected, that sent it to the bin that starts with G, because you can't bring it back because the committee has already said no. But of all the other 600, was there not a name that could have been brought forward to the committee to say, okay, we don't want Kingsville in the name because blah, blah, blah. Let's try this one. What do you think? And get the students' opinion. Because if it had been sent back to the committee, which is what Trustee Chin had asked for on February 20th of 2024, if it had been sent back to the committee, then they would have evaluated the acronym and we wouldn't be in the position we are with the acronym. So, I just don't know what was so special about Erie Migration Academy that it was worth all of this. I have no idea. Or if I do have a slight idea of what happened, I can't say. So I better leave.
As it was explained, the reason why the name was brought up in the committee meeting is because there was a condition within the, I don't want to call it legislation, but
no, as far as the academy part,
no, as to why the names that were brought forth by the committee were omitted and a new name was brought forward.
Yeah, I don't know those details, but again,
it was a condition within your rules of naming, right? The school board had created their list of protocol, and there was a condition in there which would allow a trustee to introduce a name that they saw fit.
Oh, right, yeah,
So clearly that was what was exercised in order to do so, and as you've explained, this wasn't anything that was discussed at length or previously introduced, or was it? Was there conversation within the committee prior to that there was going to be a new name introduced?
Are you asking me? I don't have any information about the committee.
No,
sorry, at the board level.
The board level.
Did you have any idea that this was coming?
Yes, because the morning of the meeting, and I think I mentioned this in August, I'm not sure, but the morning of the meeting, I received a phone call asking to support a different name. And I hadn't even opened my board package to see what the two names were yet. And after the conversation, I thought, gosh, I guess I better read what we're doing tonight. So I had decided which one I liked, and I expected to be able to talk about it. But I was asked in that conversation if I would support the new name, and I said, well, what is it? And I was told, well, I'll tell you at the meeting tonight. And I said, well, I'm not going to offer support till I hear it. And so I knew something was going to happen, but I honestly thought that we'd get to talk about the two that were presented from the committee. So I was flabbergasted when it happened the way it did, that in August when Steve, I think it was you maybe, who asked me what I thought of the names that were put forward. I think I replied, wow, you're the first person who's ever asked me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was Kevin.
No, it was Steve.
I don't know.
We'll give Steve the credit. It was Steve.
Well, because Kevin's out here.
Yeah, because Kevin's out here.
It might have been Kevin.
I think it was Kevin.
Anyway, because they were simply never discussed, and they should have been, because why else would a committee spend all that time? And the students really, me talking to the students, oh, my battery's about to die, me talking to the students, I realized they were really, really trying hard and putting their heart into it. So they had to give up all of that, all their time for what? So excuse me, I'm trying to find a phone charger.
No, and I think that's why it sort of felt like a slap in the face that the time was put in and the names weren't even brought forward for debate. And it was this entirely new name that no one had heard, no one had considered. Parts of it, again, had been rejected. Did we lose her or she found a charger?
Nancy?
Yeah, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I found a charger.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
So, that was sort of the real, the apex, if you will, that really kind of set everything in motion.
So when everything went down, the sanctions are enacted, you're silenced. Were you thinking that there was a way that you could persevere with this restorative justice program? And can you explain a little bit about what that entailed?
From my understanding, it's a process where you have a facilitator who makes sure that all goes smoothly, but you are supposed to be able to discuss how it had affected you, and you have to be open to realize how your actions have affected the other side. And so that's why I withdrew. I thought, I'm no longer open-minded. I thought, even in September, I was going to go through with it because I thought maybe I can get somebody to listen, because up until then, nobody had ever allowed me to speak. So I thought, okay, this guy is paid to listen to speak. Maybe I can say something that will make a difference. But I realized on October 31st that wasn't going to happen. So that's when I decided the only way to stop the board from spending the money when it should be going to a different use. And in the letter that I sent around, I think the board has budgeted for this process. The money should go to renaming the school. So that's the position I take, and I'm not going to change on that one.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned the changing of the name, because the province passed controversial Bill 33 today, and it's supposed to get royal ascension, I believe, tomorrow. And what this will do, obviously, is allow the province, the Minister of Education, more power over school boards potentially. And one of them is the ability to veto a name change or decline a name suggestion for a new school. And, had we had this in place 2 years ago, I'm not saying this bill is fantastic, but had this been in place 2 years ago, I do wonder what the outcome would have been, because we certainly had MPP Liardi's ear on this. And I'm wondering what your opinion is. Had this been in place 2 years ago, would we have a different school name?
Perhaps. What I have found out from this process is that as long as everything's legal, politicians, and I'm not trying to cut up politicians, it's the system. As long as it's legal, nobody really, I won't say cares, but they were unwilling to act on it, because when I talked to people I thought who might make a difference, who were in the political situation or a political position, they kept saying, well, is it legal? Well, yeah, I think it was legal, but it's unethical and immoral. And that didn't matter. So I was disappointed in that, but it's the way that our system is, and we have allowed it. So there was nothing illegal about what happened, but was it the right thing to do? Not even close, if you put students and communities as your focus, which is what should have happened. So I don't know about this Bill 33. I haven't read it to see what it means, but perhaps the minister would listen now.
So when you submitted your resignation to the board, was there any of the other trustees that reached out? Anyone discuss it with you? Anyone have any concern?
Not really, no.
No one. So none of your fellow trustees asked why?
No, one said, please don't. And I said, no, I have to. And that was the end of it.
So is it safe to say that they're not together in a unit working towards a mutual goal? If they've seen a rash, and I'll call 3 different reasons for each of the trustees that have resigned, but that a third now is resigning and has been very vocal about her reasons why. None of the other trustees contacted you.
I hadn't even thought about it. I guess that is kind of either it's, oh my goodness, she actually did that, or thank heaven she's gone. I'm not quite sure which.
Well,
anyway,
to your point, the interest is it should be towards the education system for the children and their best interests in mind. And again, you've been very vocal with regards to your concerns to the process and what transpired and why your concerns have not been heard. And you've done the ultimate thing that you could do in a moment where you've been hushed and said, I'm going to leave this process in order to be able to speak freely again and not be a part of any of that system. It's rather surprising to me, Dave, just this guy on the podcast, again, not the news, everyone listening, that no one else from none of the other trustees reached out. And I'm a little bit shocked.
No, sorry. The chair did reach out to me to ask if I was sure. And so if that's what you mean, yes, she reached out not to ask why I resigned or anything, just, are you sure this is what you want to do? And I said, yes, I'm sure. Thank you very much. So
that's a confirmation. That's a confirmation of decision, not a request or not an inquest of reasoning behind.
Correct.
Usually when you quit a job, folks that you work with, that you worked closely with over some things that are pretty stressful, kind of say, hey, you're quitting? Where are you going? Or why are you quitting?
Or sometimes even, we may not have agreed on everything, but thanks for your time. Thanks for your efforts. We accomplished something while you were here. Something.
Yeah. So I see where you're headed. I didn't get a going away party.
No.
Well,
but again, for someone to just step in and say, hey, thanks, Nancy.
And it's not an easy position. You're elected and you have to make hard decisions. And there's things that you had to vote on and decide that aren't favorable in the greater community, right? About budgetary spending and reductions and cuts and realignments and things of that nature. And sometimes it should be fun, like the naming of a school. And, these are a little bit of the more lighter subject matter that the board should have to deal with, and in turn, it ended up being the demise of your tenure as a trustee, and created such a public outcry of distrust for the actions of the board. It's again alarming that when you made your decision that there wasn't any outreach or any questioning or concerns, not even from the integrity commissioner. Not that I don't think that they serve that role, but interesting.
It is. And to compare, I remember when Ruthven Public School, when the decision was made to close it, and there was backlash, there was a lot of upset, there was tears and whatnot, but not to this level. Like, this to me has been probably the most controversial decision.
Harrow High School.
Harrow
High School was tough.
It was. I agree. I was there.
That's a community banding
so comparable.
Together.
Yes. Yeah. Along the same lines. Then, but it seems that this little pocket, if you will, seems to really stir the pot.
Well, Nancy, what's next? What's next for Nancy Armstrong, private citizen, local community member?
Well, I'm making costumes for a play, and I'm babysitting little kids that I just love. And so that's pretty much it. I'm going to garden next summer, etc. And I also do a little bit of tutoring. So that's
looking back though at your tenure as a trustee. Would you do anything different?
I think I would have spoken up even more sooner, but I haven't enjoyed.
Didn't say not do a podcast,
right? Since we got you in so much trouble.
It's okay. I can handle it. Anyway, I didn't like any part of what I have done. Like, this has not been easy or pleasurable at all, because I'm basically a very agreeable kind of person, but when something is harming kids, then somebody's got to speak up. And of course, the board who voted are of a different opinion that it didn't hurt kids. But I talked to the kids, and if they talk to the kids, then that's fine. But the kids I talked to had never been approached by a trustee, so I was the one who was talking to them.
Yeah, and we did as well.
Yeah. So yes, and I saw your podcast, and I used that in my email that I sent out. What some of the kids said. So I was working for the kids because that's what trustees are supposed to do. And if we have a difference of opinion there, then it's a good thing I have resigned, because I'm never going to change that opinion.
Well, Nancy, we appreciate you sharing your story with us and our audience, and saying what you felt you needed to say in those times. And it takes some courage and some bravery, and I'm sure that was very uncomfortable to go through the sanctioning and all of the silent treatment, because you had good intentions in order to serve the public as an elected official, and it unfortunately went down a very, very unintended, difficult path. So again, we appreciate you sharing your story with us and our audience, and hopefully someone hears this, sees this, understands it, and can benefit from learning from what transpired. Hopefully, maybe somebody elected.
I'm going to leave you with something not to upset anyone or anything, because I've been upset enough about it. But somebody did tell me that the community can submit a school renaming request form, but they might have to pay for the school renaming, but it is a possibility. And I thought, okay, if that is a possibility, then maybe that's something that a community group can put forward if the feeling is that it might work this time. I don't know. So I'm just leaving it with that there may be an opportunity, or next fall when there's a new group of trustees, there may be an opportunity. You never know.
I was just going to say, I would probably estimate that would be after November of next year, but we'll see.
But hey, it's a possibility. And I'm going to tell you this, if it is a possibility, then I will participate in that with the trustee board that is elected, because I have all the documents I have a lot of documents. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Nancy, I'm sure because you're being vocal, anyone who's going to arrange anything will be sure to reach out to you, because
first phone call.
Yeah, you'll be a resident expert on the subject matter for sure.
Oh boy.
So. Well, again, Nancy, thanks again for joining us on That Kingsville Podcast, and we wish you all the best in the future, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year if we don't see you beforehand.
Thanks to you too.
All right. Thanks, Nance.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Whew.
Well, yeah, that was, telling the story. I don't think she intended when, she reached out to us last year and had the interview that it was going to transpire and go the way it did. She was aware, and we did discuss off the show that, we can't control it. We're not the news. We're just, some people in a little studio that do a little show for the town, whatever we're interested in. And this story it struck a lot of people's emotions about how things transpired. And I know that time heals all wounds, as the saying goes, and the students have accepted it, that the school's name is what it is. And it's unfortunate to have to come to that conclusion, because they were a part of a naming process, and there was that engagement that did include them. And we made the comment, and I don't know if it was me or Kev or you that summarized it, that if you're asked to be a contributing factor for a situation like this, where the public input is required, and then to be completely disregarded, what does that say to a student about trusting in formality of procedure and standard and especially with the school board, who's their major factor about their life and current situation.
Yeah, I was at the school tonight actually for its parent-teacher interview night, and I was speaking with a couple of individuals there, and that you can see, as we've talked about on the podcast, we talked about actually with Andrea, the spirit in the school is growing.
Yeah.
But I actually said, like, I still have trouble saying the name. I don't like saying the name. I don't want to say the name. And it's less about what the name is as much as it is about the process and how the name came about.
Absolutely.
And, my daughter was on the committee and she was left sort of jaded with some of the things that went on. It was an interesting process to be a part of. And it just sort of escalated from there.
Well, it's
I know it's
tiring.
You've kind of exhausted it, but
yeah, it's tiring, and I don't want to reiterate and regurgitate. But a school is much like a church, much like a community center, much like a town organization. It's an identifier of unity within a group of people.
Yep.
And the community had an objection about what transpired within, the walls of town. And to me, Dave, this is my opinion, only my opinion again, not the news, ego got in the way. And ego and lack of understanding of what sometimes humility and being humbled and being corrected can do when you double down and triple down and drive against the grain, especially with something as simple as naming a school.
Yeah. And it's, a lot of people just say, well, where do you go to school? I go to the school in Kingsville. Well, I'm a Coyote.
You mentioned the tennis. It was Kingsville, the entirety, from everyone who arranged it, because nobody knows where. And we understand. We're not naive. There are schools and cities that are not named. Like, for instance, every school in Windsor is not named Windsor School.
Well, how could you? Exactly.
Correct.
However, when you're the only publicboard.ca high school in a community, to me, the town name is an identifier.
Correct. In fact, it should be the identifier, because regionally you understand where that is, especially when the board covers such an area, right? It's just, anyhow. I'm gonna final thoughts, Steve.
No.
Yeah. All I can say is, with what Nancy presented at the end about renaming, we'll see if it happens. We're not going to launch any initiatives. We don't have the capacity. I don't have time. To do that. Maybe there are some people within the community that are still motivated and still want to pursue that, and maybe some support will be, gathered.
Yeah, and I guess if I'm going to offer a final thought, it's that, it's a name on the building, it's a name on letterhead, but the majority of those people within that building are identifiers. They're Coyotes. They are, they go to school in Kingsville. That's what they tell people. It's not, or it's, I go to that school in Kingsville with a stupid name. I that's not me. I've heard people say that.
I have too. I heard students
because they don't care for it.
Yeah.
They're not going around saying, "Hey, I'm a proud student of."
Yeah. It's Coyotes or nothing, because Coyotes aren't identifiable to the rest of the school name.
Coyote Nation.
Oh boy. Well, speaking about Kingsville and things, let's segue real quick at the end of the episode here into draft budget. So, hey, guess what, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, there's this thing called inflation. And things got more expensive. And it's not news to anybody, but we're riding that wave with the first initial draft budget. And hey, the town of Kingsville has to ensure that the services that are required and the level of expectation of services by the townspeople get met. So we haven't been able to review and dive into the detail yet. We're saving that for next episode, which will be in 2 weeks. And Kevin will be back because we could not do this episode without Kevin because he really, really loves budget deliberation. And maybe we'll reach out to the town of Kingsville, see if Director of Financial Services Ryan McLeod or CAO John Norton can join and discuss it, or maybe Mayor Dennis Rogers, because there's concern. And there was a video that was posted on the town of Kingsville's YouTube channel talking about the immense cost of the replacement of all the town-owned assets being close to $900 million. And how do we plan to save for that for the future? So I'm sure there's a lot of that detail in this upcoming budget and deliberations. And we'll see. This is the last budget that this sitting council has elected will pass, because this upcoming fall in 2026 will be an election year. Usually, these are the last budgets that, in your experience, Steve, what usually happens before a re-election?
Anyone with re-election in the back of their mind likes to try and keep the tax rate increase low.
It's a popularity contest in certain cases, and sometimes that's the way that they like to conduct themselves. Not to say that that's necessarily the agenda, but it'll be interesting.
But I do think there is a different spin on it than there has been in the past. I do remember some councils, particularly in the early 2000s, being quite parsimonious. They were
big word, Steve.
They were very, very tight with the purse strings.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we have seen the effects of that over the last few years. This council in particular is really having and trying to play catch up, which brings with it its own risks as far as potential re-election, if you will. However, I think that a lot of people do realize that there are more needs. There is, whether it's staffing, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's green spaces, roads, whatever. So I do think that those seeking re-election have a strong defense for a higher tax rate increase, if you will. And if even, that's the platform or the hill they want to die on. It's in the past, it was like, oh yeah, it's an election year. You're right. Let's keep it to 1%. But I don't see that being quite as strong as of a pull anymore.
Yeah, and you can't minimize it, because much as you said, the kicking the can down the road leads to a far worse situation. And unfortunately, this council and the council elected before it were the first to really have to tackle it head on, especially this elected council, because starting with the facilities overview a couple of years ago and just discussing large replacement costs or repair costs or maintenance costs, it's uncomfortable. It's not anything anybody wants to do.
Right. And I think we've gone from bragging about having the lowest tax rate or water rate or whatever to saying, hey, we have the lowest rates. This isn't right. We need to up them because of. So it's kind of a 180 on the strategy, the thinking, and the presentation.
And to the naysayers, right? It's an easy subject, right? Whenever there's a tax rate increase, everyone's quick to judge and say, well, you gave yourselves a raise or blah, blah, blah. Like, we all like to complain about things. We all like to discuss like how we don't want to pay more for a cup of coffee. The reality is, in certain cases like this, these are costs that we have to either find a methodology to deal with within a budget that we've already got, which pretty much isn't reasonable because costs go up every year and things change and things need to be replaced. Town of Kingsville is growing. Guess what, folks? You think this is the start? No, it's going to continue to perpetuate as growth happens.
And there'll be some that'll make the argument, well, we've got however many more people, that should be an increased enough tax base.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no, because you're not only paying for the new infrastructure, but you're paying to have to replace the old infrastructure too.
And we've seen major infrastructure projects through the years, resurfacing Main Street, what was it, the wastewater treatment?
Yeah.
Look
at the work that's been done on Road 2 in the last couple of years.
Right. It should not be a surprise because a lot of those major capital projects are visible within town. You just have to look and understand, yes, when we had a tax increase, it went to projects like this. And glitz and glamour, they're not replacing culverts and bridges. Not fancy, necessary.
Yeah.
Necessary for who we are as a town in order to facilitate.
Because what's the alternative if you don't? It's a lot more expensive and it's a lot more inconvenient.
Inconvenient, yeah. And possibly you don't have control over the scope of how it gets done going forward. You lose that control. So,
when the water pressure's down at midnight and, spewing out of the manhole. Sorry, not manhole. I sit corrected. It's a maintenance cover.
Oh, yes, we've degendered.
Yes, I apologize.
Danger cover, I call them, because it says danger sewer on the ones. It's a danger sewer.
Yes. Anyway.
I digress.
I do. We're done.
Yeah. So that'll be on the next episode when Kevin's back. But I encourage everyone on the Have Your Say Kingsville.ca website. They have posted the draft budget. If you're interested, give it a look. Provide them with some input and some feedback. That's what that tool is there for. Speak up, be heard.
Have your say.
Have your say, Kingsville. So thanks, everyone. Like and subscribe. Watch the Santa Claus parade video. Listen to my voice while you look at all that fun and festivity. And we'll see you all next time on That Kingsville Podcast.